Hello and welcome back to IN-4-AHA's monthly webinars. My name is Cláudia Campos and I'm working with IN-4-AHA and University of Porto and the IN-4-AHA consortium. Today we're discussing the practical value for instruments for cross-border cooperation, specifically twinning programs and matchmaking events. We're talking about their benefits, challenges, and lessons learned from these activities. Like I said, unfortunately, I'm going to have to wear a mask today due to Portuguese indoor spaces mask mandates. This session will also be recorded and then uploaded to our social media channels. And as usual, this webinar will have a space for discussion after the presentation. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat box, or you can wait until the end of the presentations to do so directly. So to discuss these matters, we have a presentation from Tamás Békási regarding the value of matchmaking events. Tamás is AAT Health, a regional innovation schemes business creation manager since 2019. And has been representing the AAT Health Accelerator Program portfolio in these regions. And then we have a contribution from Rónán O'Caoimh, sharing his experience with twinning programs and the scaling up of the rapid cognitive assessment tool, or the RAPCOG, across EU regions. Rónán is a consultant geriatrician at Mercy Hospital in Cork, Ireland. In fact, he will have to leave at 12 o'clock to attend a clinical meeting at this hospital. So regarding the Q&A part, you can also drop your questions in the chat box. Otherwise, we're going to have some pre-prepared questions. So enjoy the session. And Tamás, the floor is yours.
Thank you. If I'm right, you can see my screen. I hope so. Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm Tamás Békási. As Cláudia already introduced me, I'm responsible for the business creation, aka accelerator programs within Central, Eastern, and Southern Europe in IIT Health. I just want to give you a really quick overview of what we are doing. So I don't want to steal your time because we have limited time, and of course we should focus on the matchmaking and networking. First of all, opportunities, what we are offering to startups and innovators, and besides that, I also want to show just really quickly some success stories coming out from matchmaking and networking opportunities, and then just as a final point, want to show you our recent program, which is absolutely collaboration based, because whenever we are talking about networking and matchmaking, in our case, that's just not about making the momentum. So it's and let me just quickly hit in the middle. So whenever we are talking about supporting startups or innovators, of course, we are able to give education for them from the simple training to the through the boot camps till the MSc programs we are funding and supporting all over Europe. So as the European Institute of Innovation and Technology, our best intention and goal is to accelerate the innovation performance within Europe, and of course it starts with education. And then whenever we are talking about access to stakeholders and access to market, now that's the point where we can talk about matchmaking and networking opportunities. And by intention, I'm not using the word events, because of course one part of these networking and matchmaking opportunities, that whenever we are working together with students or researchers, so who is about to make something with their ideas, with their solutions, so they want to drive it to the market, or whenever we are talking about startups or big corporates, we are also working together with, of course, one of the simplest way, let's say, is to, based on the demand and competencies, we are constantly organizing networking and matchmaking events throughout the year. And whenever I'm talking about events, you need to imagine like 20 to 30 events in minimum in a year, because just in the accelerator pillar, meaning that the accelerator programs and the startups, we are organizing 16 programs just this year. For startups, from the ideation to the scale-ups and scale-outs, so different maturity levels, different needs, and all of these programs, not all of them have a single networking and matchmaking events, but most of them. And of course, we have common ones with the different regions, because IIT Health, as EIT, is covering whole Europe, and we are regional-based offices. And of course, these regional offices are also bringing entities together, because what we are really proud of as EIT Health, that we have a really extended network of ecosystem players. We have 150 plus official members who are paying membership fee for EIT Health, and these are the biggest universities and the biggest corporates. Of course, we are bringing them to the board whenever we have promising startups, promising innovators. But besides our official members, we have a really huge informal network of investors, future customers, of course, healthcare providers. So all of these members can be activated whenever we are talking about bringing the different players together. But besides that, and this is why I intentionally used not the event, but the opportunity word, we are also organizing programs which are collaboration based. And this is one of the examples I would like to show you at the end. This is Healthcare Lab together with Roche, because whenever we are talking about networking and matchmaking, of course, it's not something new and we didn't invent it, but it's pretty obvious that whenever we have still early stage startup or early stage innovator, but already something tangible they have, we can bring them together with, for instance, pharmaceutical companies or healthcare providers. And actually from the early stage of product or solution development, they can work together with a pharmaceutical company or a healthcare service provider. And this is one of the best way actually to create a common platform with, of course, a prominent member of the ecosystem or maybe a future customer or an acquisition power. So actually we are more and more focusing to create joint programs with healthcare providers, pharmaceutical companies, and developing new programs which are challenge-based. And all the challenges are actually hosted by different entities outside of EIT Health. So this is how we are doing actually networking and matchmaking. And the last point here, of course, access to finance. So actually most of the programs are offering smart fundings for startups. The maximum amount of money we can give without any equities or shares. So that's important to mention here. That's 50,000 euros in a year. So this is what we can give directly to a startup. But besides that, we have our own investor network and also Venture Center of Excellence, which is actually an internal VC fund together with the European Investment Bank. But besides that, so these are our formal way of giving money to the startups. But besides that, of course, again, we have a really huge network of informal investors. So actually informal connections we have with them. So we are, of course, inviting them whenever we have a networking or matchmaking event. Just recently, last week, if I'm right, no, actually it was 2 weeks ago, almost 17th of November, we had Investor Forum actually for one of our programs where we invited the best startups we had this year with our informal network of investors. And of course, the purpose was that absolutely matchmaking. Nowadays we have, so if Cláudia just mentioned the challenges, of course, the current era is quite challenging because how she's wearing the mask, unfortunately, all of us need to wear the mask. And on-site events, of course, we can talk about them. Everybody is trying it. And I'm not saying there is no space for that. But if you look at the on-site events, of course, there are really nice examples like Web Summit in Portugal, where actually thousands of people were there. But most of the events right now, which are organized on site, are running with limited number of people. People are, I'm not saying scared, but actually they still need to, follow restrictions. So for this reason, many of the events like ours in EIT Health are held online. And of course, whenever we are talking about online matchmaking, it's always a little bit less powerful than an on-site, but it's also a matter of the equipment, let's say, because now we are almost 2 years after the pandemic started. And I sense that many of the matchmaking networking events, not in our case, but whenever I'm getting into to, let's say, an invitation-based event, is not using any type of matchmaking or networking applications, which in my view and my experience, it's a kind of mistake. So we can talk about, of course, Hopin, we can talk about InPromptMe, because we can also talk about Airtable, which is recently we just started to use. We have different experience with different applications presentation, so I don't want to take your time. But definitely my advice is that if you are running any type of networking or matchmaking events, please take care about the matchmaking application part as well. So you need an application where people can see each other, book each other, and then run the meeting inside the application. Because if we are talking about, there are many other applications where people can schedule, but then whenever the time is coming, they need to go to another application like Zoom, and they need to start the session. I don't need to detail it, I believe, for you how not fortunate this way is, because people are just losing their link, they don't find the way, they just forget about time. You know, we are still talking about people. So you need something which is super simple, super hands-on, and everything is in one place. And you know, I don't have any shares in Airtable, but this is what we found the best solution at the moment. There is also a small startup, IN-4-AHA, Czech startup. Unfortunately, now they are making some new developments, so they are just halting their operation at the moment. But I truly advise them because they are super good, super simple, super good. So that's pretty much what they can offer. But also Airtable. Guys, I know that I'm running out of time, so just really quickly, some of the success stories, because these are also coming from networking and matchmakings. You can see, and of course, sorry, just running back to this, it's important. This is one of the key message of EIT Health Accelerator programs. We are thinking of a journey. So we can start to support startup when they have only an idea, nothing else, just an idea. And we can drive them through the different stages to become actually a European, regional, or maybe a global player at the end. And this is what you can also see in the success stories. So different programs each and every year. Of course, they had their own journey. So I don't want to resonate on the circumstance that their success is our success. No, we just contributed to their success. So they drove their own journey, but during their journey, in each and every year, we can offer something which would be helpful for them. So this is how we can contribute to their success. And also one of the, it's Marco Bonanno, one of our alumni. You can really see that how he started from the ideation. This was the previous Jumpstarter program, actually, but this is how we called it lately, the Ultimate Business Planning Bootcamp. So this is how he started with his company, and then they created Sony Health. It's a Portuguese company. So actually, they went through all the early stage programs, so InnoStars, then Head Start, and actually they went to Catapult, which is for scale-ups and scale-outs, and they are still really successful. So this is pretty much what we are trying to do. And of course, in each and every stages, they were able to meet with industrial players, cooperatives, and then customers during the networking and matchmaking events. And just really quickly, Heska Lab. So this is what we are actually, I'm just showing you the last day today, because actually this is the application deadline today. So at the end of the day, we will close the application. This is together with Roche. Together with Roche, we are creating a Central Eastern and Southern European journey for startups. As you can see, these are the companies who are actually included. Of course, Portugal is in. So this is pretty much, and we have some almost out of Europe, so Turkey, for instance. So this is really a pan-European program. And these are the 3 challenges where startups can resonate to. So if in your network somebody can be interested in, of course, please feel free to advertise or just give towards the word. We have already a lot of applications, but of course we are always more than open for nice projects. So this is how we are proceeding. And guys, this is who I am. Actually, this is my old title, Business Creation Project Manager, but now I became a Business Creation Manager. Nothing, I mean, no difference if you ask me, because of course I'm doing the same thing for years in EIT Health. But if you need any information regarding our networking and matchmaking formulas, how we are doing, what are, let's say, our experiences regarding how to make an impactful networking and matchmaking event, of course, I'm more than happy to answer for your questions. If you are interested in our programs, you can also go to eithealth.eu or innostarter.eithealth.eu, or again, contact me via my email address or LinkedIn, and more than happy to help you. I know it was a huge amount of information, guys, so sorry to burden you, but I tried to be time conscious. If I'm right, I pretty much did well, Cláudia. Okay, if you have any questions for now, please let me know. If you have further questions later on, you know my contacts.
Oh, thank you so much, Tamás. It was perfect, no problem. And thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. So now we have Rónán, and Rónán, please, you can share your screen and begin whenever you want.
Thanks. Okay, can you see the presentation? Great. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I'm going to be talking a little bit about a twinning event that took place in the first call for Twinnings in 2016, 2017. This is a project that was initially developed in Ireland, in Cork City. And I'll talk you through a little bit about our journey, some of the different challenges that we were presented with as part of the twinning. So I'll discuss the challenges, the objectives, and the development of the program, an overview of it, including the instrument that was developed as part of this project, the impact of the twinning on the instrument, and the benefits of participation within twinning. So the challenge clinically is that, I suppose, cognitive impairment is increasing as demographic aging causes a greater number of older adults to be still living in the community in recent years. And it's challenging because there isn't a clear division between different aspects of cognitive impairment over time. People transition between normal cognition through to mild cognitive impairment, where there is impairment in cognitive testing, but still independence in functional activities of daily living, through to dementia, where they lose their ability to be independent for activities. And it's generally a single direction of travel. But we do know that if you address mild cognitive impairment, if you identify it earlier, there is a potential that you may slow it converting to dementia, which has significant social and economic and personal costs. So the objectives of the Rapid Community Cognitive Screening Program, or RAPCOG, were to validate this short cognitive screening instrument for differentiating MCI from normal cognition and early dementia across Europe, to explore the instrument's psychometric abilities, so that's its abilities to differentiate those different stages I just showed you, to establish its validity against other instruments that do something similar, to develop cutoff scores so that we can determine if people with certain scores are more likely to have this and would benefit from further assessment or not. And to develop an information technology solution to propagate this approach. And finally, to upscale it then for use in other languages, other cultures, and other countries as well. Okay, so this is the overview of RAPCOG. The primary emphasis here was on this stage, the third stage, the primary care stage, where the instrument will be scored in primary care, and then referral onwards to more detailed assessment. So the instrument itself has been previously published. There's detailed scoring administrations, several publications and books on this instrument. But in summary, just to describe it to you, there's 6 subtests within it, asking questions about the patient's orientation in time and place, their ability to listen to and repeat words, their ability to recall these words, their ability to draw a clock, to name a list of different items, in this example, animals, within a minute, and then to repeat a story that they hear read to them. And this has been published against standardized instruments, such as the mini mental state examination, which you may have heard of, which are well-established instruments to identify different stages of cognitive impairment. So the funding for the first round of Twinnings was through the Scale AHA, the Scaling Up of Innovations in Active and Healthy Aging Innovation Scheme. The goal of this was to support the EIP on AHA, the European Innovation Partnership on Active and Healthy Aging, to accelerate the scaling up of innovative practices such as this. So there was 20 different twinnings that were supported in the first call for twinnings. Amongst these was our RAPCOG project. So you can see these are the partners that participated across 4 different countries, Portugal, Spain, Italy, and Ireland. The originator site was here in Cork, as I said. So there were a number of facilitators that supported this. We had previously, some of the sites had collaborated previously in the Priscilla FP7 funded study. This was a IT solution developed to identify and screen for frailty at an early stage and community level, and to develop a multifactorial intervention to address pre-frailty before frailty became established. And this was looking at cognitive, nutritional, and physical activity solutions. The QMCI had been part of this IT solution to screen for early cognitive impairment, and the Italian group that was part of Priscilla were part of our twinning exercise, and they had previously published an Italian examination of this instrument that was translated. So the planned steps were to develop a clear protocol for studying this RAPCOG proposal, to then develop timelines for scaling up the intervention, to translate it and culturally adapt it into the languages of the adopter countries, to complete the translation step by incorporating the feedback from initial trial, so trying to validate the instruments on a trial basis within each of the adopter sites, and then to validate the instruments with the view to incorporating these translated versions into an application for smartphones and tablets. So there were a number of different milestones that were reached. The project kicked off initially in January of 2017. We had an initial Skype call. This is pre-COVID, so we were then able to meet for our first twinning in Barcelona in February of 2017. We had completed all the translated materials by March 2017, and then later that same month to prepare the sites for initiation of the validation studies. We then met again in April of 2017 to follow up and to review progress and data collection, and had a final review meeting there in Cork at the end of June, and prepared some preliminary data and a submission to the funding authorities later in July. So overall, the meeting was very successful. There were a number of positive outcomes that were related to this, part of which were the opportunity to actually meet and collaborate with similarly minded researchers. So we developed a protocol which will serve as a template for future development of this project. We translated and culturally adapted the QMCI cognitive screen into 3 EU languages: Spanish, Catalan, and Portuguese. We also developed a support structure and advice to help validate these instruments through workshop activities that happened as part of twinning. We were able to develop momentum and encourage the validation of these instruments. This does take time, and while the 6 months of the twinning activity wasn't sufficient to allow us to fully complete the validations, it certainly began the process. There was certainly a cultural and knowledge exchange as well, and this is something that I certainly would recommend to anybody who's considering participating in a twinning exercise. And there was a value to all of us from a career progression point of view as well. It resulted in a number of conference presentations and a peer-reviewed publication as well that derived from this. And finally, I suppose from my own perspective as one of the originators of the QMCI, an increased awareness of our instrument, of the application for it, and in the RAPCOG project itself. So this is a publication that we published in Translational Medicine in 2019, discussing the development of RAPCOG and the initial validation of the Portuguese version of the QMCI. We also then were able to implement the RAPCOG project in northern Portugal. This is a study of 436 people over 65 in the community attending primary care who had the QMCI screen applied as part of this RAPCOG. As part of the IT implementation, we already had developed the QMCI electronically, And as part of this, then we've been able to translate the electronic version into Italian, Portuguese, and Spanish, the languages of the twinning. There were a number of barriers. It wasn't all smooth sailing. Time was a factor. 6 months was considered to be generally insufficient time to fully result in the adoption of this innovation. Costs were a factor as well. The twinning bursary covered the costs of travel and the meeting rooms and accommodation, but obviously for any IT solution to fully materialize, there needs to be significant funding to support this. We certainly developed a lot of skills during the project, but I suppose clinicians themselves don't make good IT innovators. And I think certainly the development of matchmaking events and trying to, as Tamás says, to link people into companies that will support these innovations is very much welcomed in future iterations. And practically as well, there were cultural, language and system differences between the different healthcare systems as well, which made it quite challenging. So there were successes and some, I won't say failures, but limitations at least, and future directions of study that came out of this project. So we would have regarded this as a partial adoption of the RAPCOG protocol, both because we focus on one element of it only, and also because we weren't able to fully adopt the measures across the twinning sites. But nevertheless, it did move the project forward. We weren't able to implement, but certainly an evidence base was developed that would support the implementation of this in primary care. Importantly, I think we did strengthen cultural and academic ties between the IP and AHA reference sites, which has led to future collaborations over the last 6 years. And certainly, you know, there is a need for future large validation studies to confirm this instrument and the RAPCOG approach to identifying cognitive impairment at community level is accurate and reliable. So I just want to thank Cláudia for the opportunity to speak today. Thank the participants of RAPCOG, the academic universities and the European reference sites and the Scale AHA originally for funding this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rónán, for sharing that with us. As far as presentations go, this is it. I'm going to ask now people in the audience if anyone has a specific question they would like to ask our speakers, something related to their programs. There's no problem. If you're feeling shy, you can write it down in the chat box. Otherwise, just raise your hand, and I will give you the time to speak as soon as you want to. So I would like to start by asking Tamás, what do you think should be the main value proposition that a matchmaking event should have to its participants? How to bring participants in? I'm not sure if Tamás was able to hear my question. So no problem. So I'm going to ask then of Rónán, what are the next plans for RAPCOG, since it was the twinning was in 2017? What are the next steps?
It's a good question. So the QMCI screen is being used as a cognitive screening instrument in several countries, and since RAPCOG, I said, awareness of the instrument increased, we were contacted by numerous sites both across Europe and internationally as well to validate the instrument. So since 2017, it's been published in numerous languages, from Korean, Japanese, through to Turkish and even Croatian. So there's been a number of different translations of the instruments. The 2020 study that I showed earlier showed its implementation at population level in northern Portugal, and we're looking to develop this further to try to get the instrument established as a screening instrument for use at population level in the community in northern Portugal. But there are challenges from the IT perspective. We've been looking to secure funding to try to realize the functionality of the application. At present, I suppose there are cost implications to its use, And so that limits its access. If this was something that was freely available, I think it would be something that would certainly be more widely used. So I suppose to try to get sponsorship to fund that is important as well. Certainly as a group of collaborators, we have worked together on other projects as well. And the hope is that we can revisit this in a more meaningful way post-COVID. I guess from a clinical point of view, most of the participants have been clinicians, and it has made certainly the last couple of years challenging anyway in developing this. So yeah, look, I mean, certainly the QMCI instrument has gone from strength to strength over this time. And the hope is that as part of the broader screening initiative that we can develop this across Europe if possible.
And so what do you think were the long-term effects from participating in the Twinnings for the development of ROPCOG?
So certainly, I said the cultural exchange element of this is really important. I think that can't be overlooked. I think still, there are lots of barriers in the European Union to us working together truly in a collaborative fashion. Our language and cultural barriers and distance as well, does that make that challenging? So I think RAPCOG certainly benefited from participation, because I think it did allow us to meet people with different perspectives, to certainly to understand a different cultural way of applying these sort of models. Healthcare systems across Europe are very different from each other. I think really understanding some of the challenges, how this could be implemented, how it could be used, reveal themselves as part of this project. I'm not saying necessarily that we have the solutions for how to fix this based on the twinning exercise, but it allowed us to understand and appreciate some of the challenges that there would be in implementing this project at a European level, at a basic level, I suppose. For example, we operate in a memory clinic environment, so we have different layers. So you have your community primary care level, and then you have your secondary care level, where you have a more detailed assessment. And the purpose of this instrument is to identify people who need further assessment. It isn't a diagnostic instrument, but it's there to help, I suppose, identify people who would benefit from that more detailed assessment. But the mechanisms, for that in Ireland are very well established, and they match with this sort of instrument's use in the community. In Portugal, for example, that wasn't necessarily the case. There aren't dedicated memory clinics, or there certainly weren't in 2016, that would allow that referral pathway to be replicated easily. That adoption and adaptation of the process needed to be used, and certainly we have attempted to do that through this project. So I think definitely one of the main strengths of participating in this was that it helped us understand some of the future challenges of implementing this. I think we wouldn't have fully appreciated some of these without actually participating, without going to the sites, without seeing the clinics, how they operate in real life. It was so much more than just the study element of it. It was actually the visiting sites, meeting people, hearing their experiences, seeing and hearing what their challenges of introducing such a program would be in real life.
And so, other than the languages, other than the translations to Portuguese and Spanish and Italian, did this cultural exchange lead to any type of iterations in the questionnaire itself, in the tool?
I suppose the tool itself was fixed in the sense that it was, it has been validated in that sense, but there were definitely there was a need for cultural adaptation. So some of the language, some of the items, for example, so some of the wording had to be changed. So that was required as part of this. I suppose of the protocol itself, the instrument wouldn't change necessarily, but the model itself certainly would need adaptation and change based on participation. As I said, it isn't something that would be directly applicable to each country in Europe, but the different healthcare systems would mandate that we would have to make some adaptations if it were to be used. And our experiences in Northern Portugal very much confirmed that.
And so what were the effects of the RAPCOG on your target population? What were the benefits it brought to your clinical practice?
So I suppose that we were able to screen more people, and in a systematic fashion as well. So up to this point, screening is very much on an ad hoc basis. And I mean, the reason for that is that there hasn't been great evidence of treatments available. And many people might argue that, would you want to screen to identify something where you may not intervene offer a treatment. But I think over the last 10 years, we understand cognitive impairment better. We understand the importance of early identification for delaying progression, for slowing progression of disease. And as new treatments become available, there's the opportunity that early identification will bring to perhaps modify the disease and prevent progression to dementia, which obviously is a very serious problem across the European Union as we have aging societies. So I think there's no doubt that it will offer an opportunity to identify more people with cognitive impairment at an earlier stage. And certainly the implementation of the QMCI in Northern Portugal showed again that primary care can become part of this, and that early identification can be a routine part of practice as well. So I think there's no doubt that people benefited from participation in the study. It was relatively small numbers, I have to be honest. But moving this program forward shows the potential that maybe in the future for community-based screening for dementia, mild cognitive impairments, the prodromal stage before development dementia. And this project really was, and to my knowledge, is still one of the only community-based initiative to identify and screen in a systematic and methodical fashion for cognitive impairments. I suppose it goes away from the traditional presentation only when somebody develops symptoms to a more methodological approach, which may allow people who perhaps previously wouldn't have had the opportunity to present, whether that be due to societal inequalities or other factors like that might prevent them from gaining access to healthcare, to try to be part of a broader community screening initiative. There are pros and cons to screening, as I said, and at the moment the field is in equipoise, so it's balanced between the benefits and the risks of screening for cognitive impairment. So I think this project certainly moved the research field forward a little bit. So I think in that sense, it will benefit patients in the long term, I think, hopefully.
And hopefully, if you are screening sooner, you'll be able to also intervene sooner in the cognitive impairment transition. I'm not sure if Tamás is able to hear us here now. Because I would like to ask something of Tamás, but I'm not sure if he's in the room or if he's listening. In the meanwhile, does anybody have a specific question they would like to pose? Okay. Is the connection okay for everybody? I'm afraid we might have lost Tamás, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure he's still here, but I'm not sure if he's able to listen. So if there's not any other question.
No, I'm okay. Sorry, I can hear. I'm traveling, so that's the reason I have the camera off. Apologies.
Oh no problem. Because I was asking a question and I didn't have a reply, and I thought there could be a connection problem.
No, I got a late call up for a booster vaccination, so I ended up traveling and not being able to participate as much as I wanted.
Oh, it's okay. I'm not sure if it's convenient for you to answer some questions. Otherwise, it's fine.
Yeah, I can answer some questions.
Yeah, because I was asking you in the beginning of the Q&A part, what do you think should be the main value proposition that a matchmaking event should offer its participants? How should we engage people to participate?
I suppose that there has to be value for everybody, and that particular projects are able to move forward through the matchmaking, and that and the learnings of prior experience are of great value. For example, the project that Rónán described there, it has great potential for being applied to many different countries, and the challenges that he had to overcome, I suppose, are the important thing. And even, he's talking about support and it may open up avenues by taking part in an exchange. It may open up new avenues of support for projects such as that, being part of an exchange. One party to the exchange may be aware of avenues of support that the other party may not be aware of.
And regarding the matchmaking events, what do you think would be the main advantages for smaller sized companies and new entrepreneurs that enter your programs in EIT? What can they gain mostly from joining matchmaking events?
Contacts, I think, are the important thing, that you're able to, that it'll accelerate different processes, because somebody that you're involved in the match, that you meet at the matchmaking, can put you in contact with somebody that can accelerate what you're trying to achieve, and may have a knowledge beyond the knowledge that you have. So I think the contacts and the exchange of knowledge is as important, if not more important, than any other aid that's available through the exchange.
And so it becomes very clear that the smaller companies and new entrepreneurs have a lot to gain from matchmaking events. And one of the things that can attract them is the possibility to collaborate with a larger enterprise. How can we also engage larger enterprises to participate for mentorship or for possible partnerships or finance? What do those bigger or larger enterprises have to gain from these events?
Like, for example, I can see even this particular project, I can see how it would be something that the organization I'm involved in would be involved in providing support to. So I suppose for the larger organization, it's being aware of the different activities. I came across this organization online, and I spent a good bit of time online, and I can see that there's great value in it for me and for our organization, and that supports that. For example, the organization I have a lot of software engineers based in Eastern Europe who are just there and available to do work on projects such as this, and the organization aren't trying to take ownership of anything that comes out of it, but they're there to support, to get better outcomes for patients. So I think that trying to be active on Twitter is important, and getting the right people on Twitter to advocate and to push what you're doing is important, because a lot of people that are involved in innovation and in improving patient outcomes are active in social media. So having the right people in social media advocating for you. Hackathons, I find are a good place. Attractive hackathons bring people together as well.
In addition to these matchmaking events, you're also suggesting that hackathons are good, and also training programs for the SMEs. What else do you think should be brought into the table to make sure that these events are integrated in a wider strategy, and they're actually helping innovators bring out their products?
Well, I think that for medical education, for both doctors, nurses, physiotherapists, different people involved in healthcare, that part of the formal training should be a module on innovation and collaborating, that helping people to identify the pain points along the patient journey and work to solve those patient pain points should be a part of the formal training for people, because doctors, nurses, other health professionals, they have far greater insights than anybody else besides the patients. And I think that if it was formalized during their training, it would give people who are involved in those professions it would give people who are involved in those professions a platform to provide better outcomes for patients in the long term.
So I just have one final question. I would like to ask you, what do you think is the long-term impact of these matchmaking events for the stakeholders that attend them?
The long term, I think that it provides inspiration for people to seek out projects that they can collaborate on.
I'm not sure if anyone has any other question to propose. If not, I would like to thank so much everybody for being here today, and also our presenters, Tamás and also Rónán, that had to leave. And if that's all, if nobody wants to add anything, I would like to we're going to end the webinar here. And also again, thank you once again for being here, and I'll see you again on the next one. Thank you.
And healthy aging.